Hi everyone, my name's Alison and I'm a speech pathologist from IPC Health, and today I'd love to talk with you a little bit about how you can help your preschool age child with their early literacy skills while you're maybe at home a little bit more during this time of COVID-19 restrictions. So I'm going to be just talking about what skills children need to learn literacy, what are some of the causes of literacy difficulties, and then I'll talk through some practical tips of how you can help prevent literacy difficulties from happening through language development, sharing books with your children, having fun with sounds, exposing them to written words, making your own books, and of course drawing. So what skills do kids need to learn reading and writing? Well, they need to be able to watch and listen. They need to have good language, understanding instructions and using spoken language well. They need to be able to draw to develop their fine motor skills. They need sound awareness skills, which I'll be talking a little bit more about. Print awareness skills, so that's written word awareness, and of course alphabet and sound knowledge. So sound awareness is being able to think about the sounds that are in spoken words. So having that understanding that each spoken word is made up of sounds. So for example, the word hat has 3 sounds. It's got t. So just have a think to yourself now, using your own sound awareness skills. What's the first sound you can hear in the word cow? And what's the last sound you can hear in the word fish? And have a think now about, does your child have that sort of awareness yet? It's quite normal for 4-year-olds to not have an idea of this yet, but hopefully in this year before school, they'll be starting to get a little bit of sound awareness, and that's something that you can help them with to prepare them for literacy. Okay, and print awareness, that's the awareness that written words actually stand for a real thing. So the word stop actually means stop, for example. And also the understanding that letters stand for different sounds. The letter S stands for the sound S. Just close this. And of course, alphabet and sound knowledge. So recognizing the written letters of the alphabet and knowing which sound each letter makes. So the causes of literacy difficulties. We know that about 1 in every 10 kids at school will have difficulty with their reading and writing. Sometimes it's because of medical reasons, so they might have a history of fluctuating hearing loss because they've had fluid in their ears, for example. They might have a disability, like a learning difficulty or an intellectual disability. They might have had, for whatever reason, interrupted schooling, just not enough teaching of reading and writing. But for a lot of kids, the cause of literacy difficulties is actually due to speech and language difficulties. So their language might be behind, or their speech sound system is a bit behind. So that's why it's really important, if you see those signs, to get some speech pathology to help prevent the literacy problems. And finally, there are, of course, some kids who are just learning English as a second language. And for those kids, reading can be a little bit difficult at first, but they do tend to catch up unless there are other factors at play. So here are some signs in those preschool years that your child could be at risk of literacy difficulties. Maybe they were a very late talker. They might, if they're 4 years old and still making lots of mistakes with sounds in words. So kids who are saying dop for stop, or tar for car, or maybe B for fish. If they've got quite a few of those sound errors, that might be a risk factor. Kids who are finding it hard to learn new words and new language, they have trouble understanding instructions and use quite simple sentences. So any of those factors, they're real indicators to try and get a speech pathologist to do an assessment with your child, and start to support them with that language development so that we can prevent or minimise literacy difficulties later. Also, perhaps you've been trying to teach them letters of the alphabet for a long time and they're just not learning them. That might be an indicator that literacy will be difficult. Of course, it's not a requirement that you teach your children the alphabet before school. That's what they'll be doing at school. But if you have been trying to teach them and they're having trouble learning, then you might want to get some advice or support. Kids who are not able to sit and listen to a story are at more risk. And just have no awareness that sounds are kind of words are made up of sounds. You might want to help them a little bit more with that before school. And of course, if there's a family history of literacy difficulties, that just adds an extra layer of risk. So helping to prevent those literacy difficulties. Do whatever you can to develop your child's language development and speech sound development. So if you had some concerns, get speech pathology. Also, I really encourage you to watch the talk from my colleague Kate Grist, and she's going to be talking about how to help children's language development during these COVID-19 restrictions. One of the best things you can do to prevent literacy difficulties is reading with your child or looking at books with your child every day. I'll talk a bit more about that. Having fun with sounds, I'll talk more about that. Talking about written words, perhaps making your own books, and drawing to help the fine motor development. So book sharing, start young if you can. So if you've got a baby, start now so they get into that habit. But it's never too late to start. So if you've got a 4-year-old that you haven't been reading with yet, start now. Make it a part of your routine so you remember to do it every day. You can read the words in a book, or you can just talk about the pictures, which means you could do it in your home language. But use them to have a conversation either way. So you might read a bit, your child might make a comment, and you can respond to that comment to build their language. Repeat, repeat, repeat. They'll learn through that repetition. Have fun with sounds. So this is to develop that sound awareness. So choose books that have rhyming words, sing songs with rhymes, talk about sounds at the start of words. One good one is I Spy. So I Spy with my little eye, something that starts with what could that be? Is it money? Is it mouse? So bear in mind when your child's first developing these sound awareness skills, they might not get it at all. So you might just need to expose them. You want to teach them, not test them. So the next idea is looking around the house for things that start with So instead of just asking them to do it and leaving them to it, you'll need to go around with them and say, money, that starts with let's put that in our bag. Let's see, what else starts with And then finally, making silly sentences with words that have the same starting sound. So I'm going to make a sentence with my mouse makes muddy maps. Talk about written words. So just fill their play-based world with written words. When you're out on your daily exercise, look for signs and talk about them. Oh, look, there's a stop sign. Oh, I can see it says stop. I see there's an S at the start. Can you hear it? Stop. When you're reading a book with them, point out a couple of written words. You don't have to do the whole book like that, but look, he's saying no. Look, I can see it says no because it's got oh. Add written words to your child's play. So can you see the photo here? This is one that I just did with my 4-year-old the other day. He wanted to play a supermarket, so I just quickly grabbed some scrap paper and wrote some words on there. And as I wrote the word, I talked about the different sounds I could hear. You can make your own books. That's great because it gets them to practice their drawing, and then you can write the sentence down the bottom and talk about the sounds as you're writing them. And one really good idea I read on Raising Children Network was making a family book, which I thought was excellent during this COVID-19 time when you might not be able to see your family as often as you usually would. So have a picture of Nan and write something about Nan, and then have a picture of Granddad and so on. So I got most of the information for this talk from Raising Children Network and Speech Pathology Australia. I really recommend you check it out a bit more because we've only had 10 minutes today and there are heaps more good ideas. Raising Children Network tend to keep their information really up to date with research, so bear in mind research changes over time, so check it out and make sure you stay up to date. And for parents who might want a little bit more in terms of ideas for book sharing, a really good one to look up is dialogic reading. And that's there's a Reading Rockets page on that, which is quite informative. All the best and have fun.